There are a ton of multiplayer games available on Xbox Game Pass, and with so many on the market, it can be hard to navigate and find the good amongst the bad. With some games now running a live service gauntlet that have been going on for years, we sometimes want to jump into some new and fresh experiences. So with that in mind, today we will be looking at the 20 best online multiplayer games available on Xbox Game Pass in 2024. This list will solely contain online multiplayer titles, and we will cover the best co-op games in a future video, so make sure you subscribe down below. With that in mind, my name is Fletcher, this is Xbox Nation, and without further ado, let's dive right in. If you're looking for a floatier and more streamlined version of Super Smash Bros. That revolves around spiders and laser swords, you need to look no further than Spider Heck. Spider Heck is an underrated multiplayer brawl game that puts you and other players against each other in these minimalist designed arenas. At your disposal are a variety of neon weapons that suit the style and fun inherent in every pixel of the game. If you want a double-bladed sword to haphazardly twirl around, Spider Heck has you covered. If you want a chonky pulse rifle that knocks your little spider back with every shot fired, then Spider Heck is ready to serve at your desires. In addition to all of that, since you're playing as some sort of cyberpunk arachnid, you can also web sling around the various platforms. It's a great multiplayer game and brings so much fun, and I can highly recommend it for any Game Pass subscriber. In the market for a less grounded multiplayer shooter, then Titanfall 2 fits the bill. It's so much easier to pick up and play than Apex Legends, as it has easily navigated maps and a comprehensive yet intuitive system of progression. Its fast-paced combat is thrilling for all players of all different skill levels. Titanfall 2 is genuinely considered one of the best shooters in recent memory, from a great single-player campaign and its incredible multiplayer modes. From familiar staples like Capture the Flag and Team Deathmatch to more unique concepts like the tactical attrition, there's a lot to experiment with in Titanfall 2's multiplayer. And also, you can't forget that seeing Titans fall from the sky while inside of a multiplayer game is still utterly staggering. Hell Let Loose immediately strikes a couple of FPS tropes that may tempt one to overlook it. It's a large-scale World War II battlefield-like shooter that doesn't exactly break new ground. However, what Hell Let Loose delivers in terms of depth, strategy, and immersion executes on that vision far better than most of its contemporaries. Where teamwork provides a distinct tactical advantage in most team-based FPS titles, Hell Let Loose practically mandates it to secure victory. With incredible attention to detail and an authentic military experience where you can die from one shot, you will easily be left on your toes in every single match. Hell Let Loose is a fantastically deep, tactically robust World War II FPS experience with a very high skill ceiling, and a definite must-try for any devotee to that specific niche. Bethesda has been patching and overhauling Fallout 76 since its 2018 launch, and there's no online game that fits the same niche. Imagine if Animal Crossing New Horizons allowed players to leave their cozy island, to stab giant sloths in an overgrown swamp, or visit a city full of raiders and set up a heist on a government vault with a ragtag group of bad guys. Appalachia is a big open world with lots to explore, and going through the game with a friend or two makes it even more fun. Even when the game was in its earliest state, my friends and I would make our own fun by combing through a school, mowing down ghouls, and splitting up the springs and camps amongst ourselves. There's much more to do in the game now, with daily operations, quests in the world, cannibal hotels, quest chains, and NPCs to meet and romance. It's definitely worth a revisit if you haven't picked up the game in a while, or if you're new to the series, I can highly recommend it. With Payday 3 being a massive flop, there is a very good reason why many gamers are still playing this excellent previous entry. Payday 2 sends up to 4 players on high-stakes heists at banks, motels, apartment complexes, jewelry stores, and more. Depending on personal preference and mission requirements, players can keep inconspicuous or going guns a-blazing. While the game modes can get repetitive after a few playthroughs, the substantial character customization is where Payday 2 shines the most. You will get to choose from an arsenal of weapons, gadgets, costumes, and more to create unique experiences with each multiplayer mission. It's quite simply a phenomenal experience experience and have had so many multiplayer games where I've been left in laughter. If you're a fan of both the asymmetrical horror stylings of Dead by Daylight and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, then the combination of your dreams has made it to its way to Xbox Game Pass. You can play as either a horrific member of the family out to slaughter anyone that they can get their hands on, or as one of their victims, desperately trying to make an escape from their bloody grasp. Gameplay is tense if you're one of the characters attempting to make a getaway, as every corner could spell your doom in the form of a terrifying visage of Leatherface. But difficulty is not entirely skewed in the killer's favour, as you have to play smart on that side of the equation if you're attempting to catch each other. And if you're some sort of die-hard aficionado of the films this game's based on, then there's a delightful assortment of macabre Easter eggs for you to find. Now, throw a ton of Star Wars characters on a battlefield and you already have a promise of a popular game. Make it multiplayer and things only improve from there. But if you do toss in steep microtransactions or pay-to-win mechanics, then you will definitely lose the player base entirely. That was the mistake that EA learned with Battlefront 2, the Star Wars game with the most tumultuous launch of all time. Though the game is mechanically sound and players enjoyed the gameplay in large-scale battles, EA nearly tanked the game with costly loot boxes that unlocked advantageous perks. Once EA removed the microtransactions and DICE started churning out content, Battlefield 2 was mostly saved and is an incredible multiplayer experience. As a multiplayer Star Wars game on Game Pass, it's absolutely worth playing, and the battles that you see on screen that unfold look absolutely phenomenal. This is definitely a highlight on the Xbox Game Pass library, and I'm so glad that DICE managed to turn this game around. Final Fantasy XIV is an expansive MMO recently made available via Xbox Game Pass. It's well known for its detailed and engaging story, as well as its combo-focused combat and its variable job system. Players can do just about anything in Final Fantasy XIV by fighting bosses, participating in raids, crafting items, designing homes, participating in PvP, visiting in-game casinos, and so much more. The Game Pass edition includes the base game and its first two expansions, Heaven's Sword and Stormblood. As an MMO, Final Fantasy XIV is all about multiplayer. While there are some challenges players can take on alone, most of everything is better with a party. Even when they're adventuring alone, the player will be surrounded by people, and Final Fantasy XIV is renowned for its friendly and helpful community. Rainbow Six Siege is a game you'll either love or hate. Unlike the open battlefields of Call of Duty or Battlefield, Siege sends people into tight quarters, forcing them to use more than just bullets and explosives to survive. The meticulous gameplay requires teamwork, so don't think you can be a rogue agent and make it out alive. Players will select from a gallery of operators that feature unique weapons and gadgets, and since each character can differ greatly, it's very possible to have a team that completely surpasses the opposition in every single way. It's also one of the few games on Game Pass you can turn into a viable esports career if you can. Nothing says multiplayer fun and shenanigans quite like Chivalry 2. Two opposing medieval armies square off in large battlefields, swinging gigantic swords, chucking rocks, or firing arrows from afar. Though you can definitely approach Chivalry 2 from a tactical perspective and work out the precise timing for parrying and dodging, the major draw overall though is that the game comes with sheer hilarity and the joy of screaming your way into a fight alongside dozens of others. Whilst you're storming a castle with an invading army or defending a garrison from swarm-like foes, Chivalry 2 blends competition with camaraderie into one hilarious multiplayer mix. Before we dive into our remaining games, do consider subscribing for more Xbox content almost every single day. 90% of you have not joined one of the fastest growing Xbox channels here on YouTube, and I would love to see you join us on this Xbox journey. We regularly post game lists, reviews, and news videos to keep you up to date with all things Xbox, so thank you again for your continued support so far this year, and let's dive back into the remaining games. The Gears of War series has always had confusing multiplayer. One moment you can be playing with a friend across the action-packed and emotional campaign, and next they could be blowing your head off with a well-polished long-shot round. Playing through Gears 5 multiplayer with a friend is an absolute must, particularly because the game improved upon what was lacking in Gears of War 4. The competitive circuit is as unforgiving as ever, ranked matches will test your limits, whilst unranked is a little more accessible while still offering a decent challenge. Players not looking to square off against one another can even jump into Horde mode, where they will battle an onslaught of enemies while setting up defenses and tinkering with whatever weapons land on the battlefield. Gears 5 offers so many options for players to engage one another, and it's just a matter of time whether you want to be friend or foe. Halo is back to capture its multiplayer crown with the rise of Halo Infinite. The recent resurgence and run of form by the Halo team has made Infinite into one of the best free multiplayer shooters now available on Game Pass. Halo Infinite perfectly balances the wants and needs of casual and competitive players at the same time. Mechanically, the game plays as smoothly as the FPS genre's essential modern pillar needs to play, the weapon sandbox is outstanding, and ranging from classic standbys such as the plasma pistol and battle rifle to the tantalizing newcomers like the skewer. The movement mechanics are simplified and somehow streamlined, and utilizing modern nuances such as symbol cabling while avoiding some of Halo 5's more controversial additions is greatly welcome. Add that in with a leveling system that was heavily overhauled at launch, and you have a very competent Halo multiplayer experience. Now, if you want to take on some of the most notable faces in the horror industry and some horrifying new ones, then you need to play Dead by Daylight. In this asymmetric survival horror title, players either take on the role of survivor trying to escape a mysterious overlord known as the Entity, or a killer trying to appease the malevolent force. No matter the side that you choose, you will have to equip skills and abilities that make your life a little bit easier. While the killer may appear to have an advantage, survivors have plenty going on for them that can keep them off the scattered meat hooks. Played in a first-person perspective, killers have a limited view and a delay between attacks. On the other hand, survivors can work together to power up the generators needed to escape their hell, using all manner of tools to slow the villain down. Dead by Daylight features notable names like Michael Myers, Ghostface, Freddy Krueger, amongst many more, and it's such a great game, especially for horror fans. Did you enjoy whooping your friends in Forza Horizon 4? Then it's very likely that you'll love the dominating the streets in Forza Horizon 5. The visual improvements from Forza Horizon 4 to its successor are quite evident, but that's not all that's changed between the two versions. The fifth entry of the Horizon series is 50% larger than the fourth game, ensuring players have plenty of ground to cover in this open world racer. You can take on friends and strangers in the Return of the Eliminator, which is a battle royale with cars where you casually race through empty countrysides. You will battle each other to become first in a race amongst dust storms, tropical surges and more in one of over 570 vehicles. Forza Horizon 5 also features the new Horizon Arcade mode, featuring minigames scattered across the map. These are a bit quirkier than your average race, like having to pop pinatas as they fall from a cargo plane. This is one of the best multiplayer games on Game Pass for car nuts like myself. Anybody who has ever dreamed of taking to the high seas and engaging in a spot of piracy would do well to check out Sea of Thieves. This swashbuckling open-world action-adventure game sailed onto the service at launch and currently has around 250,000 active players. With this in mind, finding people to play with shouldn't be too much of an issue, although it is still possible to play the game solo. Sea of Thieves, though, is at its best when played with others, as 4 players are needed to effectively man bigger ships. The game does support crossplay though, so you will definitely be able to play with other players across PC and now PS5. As with many of the other games on the service, Sea of Thieves has also been optimized for the Xbox Series X and S consoles, meaning that early adopters should see a notable improvement over the Xbox One generation. For Honor is essentially a hack and slash brawler with a heavy emphasis on intricate combos and blocking mechanics, playing out like a thinking man's fighting game with a variety of game modes. Players are presented with an extensive variety of characters spread out across multiple factions, from the straightforward beginner-friendly Warden to the wild stylings of the Shinobi. The actual multiplayer gameplay runs between high-tension one-on-one duels and hectic team multiplayer battles. This is one game that I've been playing personally since launch, and the game just keeps getting better and better. Thanks again to Ubisoft, they have stuck with a great multiplayer experience, and this is one that I can highly recommend for any Game Pass subscriber. Multiplayer gaming was one of the more noticeable missions when No Man's Sky launched back in 2016, but thanks to the tireless work of Hello Games, that's no longer the case. In fact, the current version of the game is almost unrecognizable when compared to the one that crash landed almost half a decade ago. As improved as No Man's Sky may be though, its online functionality still feels a little bit light when compared with some other games on the service. That's not quite to say that it isn't enjoyable, but the 8-player limit in particular does hold this quite back a bit. Thankfully, this player cap is increased to 32 when you're playing on the new Xbox Series X and S machines, and overall is a great multiplayer experience, and I heavily recommend playing with friends if you want to experience a galaxy far, far away. If you're looking for a fairly in-depth flight sim to mix into your competitive multiplayer cravings, then Star Wars Squadrons is definitely the way to go. The actual flight mechanics and controls are complex enough to provide a challenging curve, but rarely ever seem unapproachable or insurmountable. Whether siding with the Rebel Alliance or the Empire, a selection of iconic Star Wars vessels will be placed at your disposal, each one fitting into a particular tactical role for their faction. Multiplayer ranges between one-off team-based dogfights, essentially a team deathmatch, to the longer, more involved objective-based fleet battles, in which both teams aim to overwhelm and destroy the other's capital ship. The visuals on offer in this game are second to none, and the flight mechanics are just perfect. This is a multiplayer game that many Star Wars fans wanted, and it's great on Xbox Game Pass. Some games are very popular because they have good gameplay, others because the story is really good, and It Takes Two checks off both of those boxes whilst also providing a multiplayer component. In fact, the game really only works with someone at your side, and there's a ton of heart in this puzzle-laden platformer that follows a feuding husband and wife after they've been inexplicably turned into dolls. It's cute at first, but then the weight of such a situation really comes into play. There are some pretty heavy twists and turns in It Takes Two, and it's nice to have someone to share them with, especially at the end, which really goes in an unexpected and slightly upsetting route, and one that many gamers need to experience. It Takes Two has taken home quite a few awards and even won a Game of the Year award, and it's more than deserved for this fantastic experience. What multiplayer game have you been playing on Game Pass, and are there any that I've missed from this list? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more Xbox content every single day. Whilst here, and if you're in the mood for a multiplayer FPS title, why don't you check out the video on screen of our review of Hypercharged Unboxed. We were released on Xbox only a couple of days ago and is a great tower defense multiplayer shooter.